Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are going to continue with the same topic, The Day the Dam Broke by James Thurber. In previous lecture, I told you that how all the families with their pets and dogs and even the crippled people were running towards east with the crowd, which has gone crazy just because they have not realized that the dam is not broken, and they were in that trauma, or they were fixed with this kind of fear that the water is gaining on them. Then the story continues. People ran out, leaving fires burning and food cooking and doors wide open. I remember, however, that my mother turned out all the fires and that she took with her a dozen eggs and 2 loaves of bread. It was her plan to make Memorial Hall just 2 blocks away and take refuge somewhere in the top of it, in one of the dusty rooms where war veterans met and where old battle flags and stage scenery were stored. But the seething storm, shouting "Go East," drew her along and the rest of us with her. So Thurber further explains that on that particular day, everyone forgets that what they were doing presently or currently, and they joined the crowd running towards east. Even they left the stoves burning and the food cooking. So that was the situation. But he says that his mother has done something different. She actually made it sure that all the fires in the kitchen were turned off. She took with her some dozen eggs and 2 loaves of bread, as she planned that after 2 blocks there was a building which is called Memorial Hall. She and her family could, hide over there in the top rooms of that building. Those building rooms must be of attic or storeroom where they have stored that storeroom stuff over there. But her plan was a plan which never occurred, just because the crowd which was running towards east took them and her family with them. Of course, when you're running, you can't just get away and make your own way out of the crowd. You have to run with them, otherwise you will get into the stampede. So everyone was running and shouting "Go East," and they also joined them. Then he said that when grandfather regained full consciousness at Parsons Avenue, he turned upon the retreating mob like a vengeful prophet and exhorted the men to form ranks instead of the stand off the rebel dogs. But at length he too got the idea that the dam had broken, and roaring "Go East" in his powerful voice, he caught up in one arm a small child and in the other a slight clerkish man of perhaps 42, and we slowly began to gain on those ahead of us. Then what happened that the grandfather, who was little dizzy, when he got full consciousness at the corner of the Parsons Avenue, he actually turned upon the crowd which was running towards east, and he started with his own vengeful, powerful, prophetic and gestures and voice that they should stop and then turn back and face the enemy army which was gaining on them. But then he realized that the situation is totally different and the dam is broken and the water is actually proceeding or taking over them. He started running with the crowd, and he also yelled "Go East" with his powerful voice, just joining the crowd and screaming. And then he also picked one of the child which was running by him and grabbed him, and he put him in his one arm, and then on the other side he picked up another man of perhaps 42 of years, and then he was also holding him in his other arm. And just because grandfather is told to be very well-built person, strong man, so he can pick up 2 people in his 2 arms, and then he also start running with the crowd, and slowly and gradually they start gaining on the others. They were moving ahead of the others. A scattering of firemen, policemen and army officers in dress uniforms, there had been a review at Fort Hayes in the northern part of town, added color to the surging billows of people. A scattering of firemen, policemen and army officers all over the town and nearby the Fort Hayes, all of them were joining the crowd, and it added the color to the group of the people who were running. just because of course they were in their different uniform, but it tells that everyone was thinking about their life and nothing else. "Go east!" cried a little child in a piping voice as she ran past a porch on which drowsed Lieutenant Colonel of Infantry. Used to quick decisions, trained to immediate obedience, the officer bounded off the porch and running at full tilt soon passed the child bawling, "Go east!" So what happened that one little girl was running or also screaming "Go east" just past the house of Colonel, who was drowsing, was little sleepy on his porch. And as the people of the army are so much alert to quick decisions and trained to immediate obedience, he followed the shout, and he also started running towards east without even thinking that who is doing that or why they're running towards east. He just followed that call and he started running too. The two of them emptied rapidly the houses of the little street they were on. "What is it? What is it?" demanded a fat, waddling man who intercepted the colonel. The officer dropped behind and asked the little child what it was. "The dam has broke!" gasped the girl. "The dam has broke!" roared the colonel. "Go east! Go east! Go east!" He was soon leading with the exhausted child in his arms a fleeing company of 300 persons who had gathered around him from living rooms, shops, garages, backyards, and basements. So this young child, and the colonel were entered the street in which he was living, and then he was running and he is shouting, "Go east!" The one man who was, the fat man, he actually came out waddling. Waddling means not walking properly. And he said, in between, he stopped Colonel and asked that, "What is it? Why are you running towards east?" The Colonel stopped and he asked the child, "What is it?" "The dam has broke," she said, and he also repeated the same. "The dam has broke," and he said, "Go east and go east and go east," like shouting for everyone to gather and just follow him towards east. So everyone in that street around, it was 300 person who emptied their rooms, that means house rooms, shops, garages, backyards and basements of their house, and joined him, and they were all running towards east. Nobody has ever been able to compute with an exactness how many people took part in the great rout of 1913. For the panic, which extended from Winslow Bottling Works in the south end of Clintonville, 6 miles north, ended as abruptly as it began, and the bobtail and the ragtag and velvet gowned groups of refugees melted away and slunk home, leaving the streets peaceful and deserted. The shouting, weeping, tangled evacuation of the city lasted not more than 2 hours in all. So what happened? Nobody has ever been able to compute that. They were not able to grasp the exactness that how many people were running in that great run of 1913. And it all started from the place called Winslow and it ended to Clintonville. That means they actually were running like 6 miles and then ended as abruptly as it began. And what happened after 2 hours? As it started just like that, it just stopped just like that. It began the way it has begun, the same way it has ended. And when it ended, everyone actually returned to their own places. Just like, refugees melted away and slunk home. Of course, refugees are the people who are out and asking help for residing themselves to some safe places. So they when they are settled down to do certain camps, they leave the scene together, so there is no crowd left. So the group of refugees here means that everyone in the town was just like a refugee looking for the safety. So here this refugee word is used for the people of the town, that they were looking for the safety and running towards east. But when it all ended, they all melted away. Melted away here means that they all went back to their places and there was no crowd left. The shouting, weeping, tangled evacuation of the city lasted not more than 2 hours. So it just took 2 hours for all of them to come out of their house and running towards east, and when they ended it, they all just went back. Some few people got as far as Reynoldsburg, 12 miles away, 50 or more reached the country club 8 miles away. So this is how the running happened, that some covered 12 miles of running, some covered 8 miles of running. Most of the others gave up, exhausted, or climbed trees in Franklin Park 4 miles out. So most of the people who were running, they actually gave up, that maybe the water will take them, whatever, and they got tired and they just stopped running, and some of them actually climbed the trees in Franklin Park just to save themselves because they were tired of running. And order was restored and fear dispelled, finally, by means of militiamen riding about in motor lorries, bawling through megaphones. Bawling means speaking very loud. The dam has not broken. At first, this tended only to add to the confusion and increase the panic, for many stampeders thought the soldiers were bellowing, "The dam has now broken," thus setting an official seal of authentication on the calamity. Now, what happened next is that how it was stopped. It was stopped by the military people who were on lorries, and through megaphones they were saying the dam has not broken. But at first it seems that they are saying that the dam has now broken, and it was like an official seal on this on that chaos, and they were all confused further. All the time the sun shone quietly, and there was nowhere any sign of oncoming waters. A visitor in an airplane looking down on the straggling, agitated mass of people below would have been hard put it to divine a reason for the phenomena. It must have inspired in such an observer a peculiar kind of terror, like the sight of the Mary Celeste, abandoned at sea, its galley fires peacefully burning, its tranquil decks bright in the sunlight. So he says, James Thurber says here that any visitor on an airplane would have witnessed the straggling, that confused masses of people running below them, and there would be no idea the reason behind it, because it was a phenomena which could be unexplained, that why they were running. There was no reason. Any viewer outside the town or maybe from the airplane can witness it and just be confused about it, because there was no reason for the people running madly towards one direction. And then he gave you one example of Mary Celeste. It was a ship which was going from Europe to Italy, and in between the path of this ship, it was found vacant. There was no crew and not the family of the captain, which was actually riding that ship. It was called Mary Celeste. It was strange because it was not clear that why everything was on. It was in perfect shape. The Mary Celeste was in perfect shape, left on the ocean, vacated by all its crew and the captain and the family. Even it was told that the Mary Celeste has 6 months of food and water, and the engines were all okay, the sail was all okay. So why the crew left it just like that? There was only one missing boat, that safety boat, which they must have taken to save themselves. Of what, it was not known. So James Thurber gives you this idea of historic Mary Celeste ship, that this was the strangeness which could be witnessed on that particular day by any stranger, because it was not explained, it was not clear that why people were running. Now let me explain it more clearly. हुआ कुछ यूँ था कि जब सब लोग भाग पड़े थे अपने घरों को छोड़ के, तो उनको इस चीज़ का ख्याल नहीं था कि घर के अंदर उन्होंने वो क्या काम कर रहे हैं. हो सकता है खाना पक रहा होता तो खाना पकता हुआ छोड़ते हुए चले गए, चूल्हे छोड़ के चले गए, जो काफ़ी डेंजरस भी होता है, और घर के दरवाजे खुले थे और सब कोई लोग बाहर थे और बाहर भाग रहे थे. ऐसे में इनकी अम्मी ने कुछ डिफरेंट किया. उन्होंने ये किया कि उन्होंने कुछ 1 डज़न यानी कि 12 अंडे और 2 WT की ब्रेड्स उठाई, यानी 2 ब्रेड्स अपने हाथ में रखी, और उनका ये ख्याल था कि आगे 2 ब्लॉक्स यानी कि 2 ब्लॉक्स छोड़ के, 2 स्ट्रीट छोड़ के आगे जो एक बिल्डिंग मेमोरियल हॉल के नाम से है, उधर जाके उनकी फैमिली स्टे कर लेगी, उधर के ऊपर स्टोर रूम्स में जाके वो छुप जाएंगे और जब तक वो छुपे रहेंगे तो ये कुछ खाने पीने का इनका इस्तेमाल में आ जाएगा। लेकिन हुआ क्या कि वो जो क्राउड था जो बहुत तेज़ी से एक तरफ जा रहा था, तो वो भी उनको अपने साथ ले गया, क्योंकि ज़ाहिर बात है कि आप एक मूविंग क्राउड में अपना रास्ता नहीं निकाल सकते, अपना रास्ता अलग से नहीं बना सकते, आपको उस क्राउड के साथ ही भागना पड़ता है, वरना तो आप उनके पैरों तले कुचले जाएंगे। उसके बाद वो ये कहते हैं कि ये सब फिर उनके साथ जब लोगों के साथ भागने लगे, तो आगे जाके फिर ग्रैंडफादर जो उनके जो थोड़े से कंफ्यूज थे, उन्होंने फिर उनका माइंड क्लियर हुआ और उनको फिर क्लियरली सिचुएशन समझ में आई कि हो क्या रहा है। इससे पहले तो और होश में आकर भी वो यही बात कर रहे थे सबसे कि सब रुक जाएं और डेंजर को फेस करें, और पीछे मुड़ के ये जो एनिमी आर्मी जैसे कि एक आ रही है उनके सामने, उसको फेस करें, भागे नहीं उनसे पीछे मुड़ के। लेकिन फिर उनको ख्याल आया या उन्होंने रियलाइज़ किया कि ये सिचुएशन कुछ और है, एक्चुअली डैम टूट गया और पानी इनके पीछे आ रहा है। तो फिर वो समझने के बाद वो भी घबराए और वो भी लोगों के साथ भाग पड़े। एक हाथ में उन्होंने एक बच्चे को उठा लिया, दूसरे हाथ में उन्होंने किसी एक आदमी को उठा लिया और वो मज़े से उसमें ज्वाइन कर लिया उन्होंने क्राउड, और चिल्ला पड़े गो ईस्ट, और सब लोगों के साथ भागना शुरू कर दिया जैसे सब भाग रहे थे। और आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो दूसरे लोगों के साथ भी आगे बढ़ने लगे। तो ये जेम्स थर्बर बता रहे हैं कि ये एक थोड़ी फ़नी सिचुएशन सी थी, लेकिन ये सब कुछ हो रहा था। फिर वो एक और चीज़ बताते हैं, वाक़या बताते हैं कि एक छोटी बच्ची थी, वो एक स्ट्रीट के कॉर्नर से गुजर रही थी और वो उस घर जो था वो एक कर्नल का था, क्योंकि जो फ़ौज में लोग होते हैं उनका माइंड ट्रेंड होता है कि वो क्विक एक्शन लें, कोई डेंजर हो तो उसको फ़ौरन उससे निपटें, और जो भी उनको कमांड दी जाती है उसको फॉलो करते हैं। तो वो जो बच्ची थी वो ज़ोर से बोलते हुए जा रही थी गो ईस्ट वहाँ से। तो वो जो कर्नल थे जो आधे सो रहे थे आधे जाग रहे थे, उनको ऐसा लगा कि कुछ हो गया है, और वो कमांड को फॉलो करते हैं गो ईस्ट, और वो भी ईस्ट की तरफ भागना शुरू कर देते हैं। और वो इतना नहीं सोचते कि ऐसा क्यों है, ठीक है। और वो फिर ये होता है कि वो बच्ची और वो जो खुद भी कर्नल जो हैं, वो कैसे मज़े का सीन होगा कि एक बच्ची छोटी सी भाग रही है और उनके साथ कर्नल भाग रहे हैं, और वो उस गली में से गुजरते हैं जहाँ पे और भी मकानात बने होते हैं। वहाँ से एक आदमी निकलता है और वो उनसे पूछता है कि आप क्यों भाग रहे हैं, क्या हो गया, मसला क्या है। तो वो फिर रुकते हैं और वो बच्ची से पूछते हैं कि बेटा क्या मसला है। तो वो कहती है कि डैम टूट गया है, ईस्ट की तरफ भागो। वो भी यही बोलते हैं कि डैम टूट गया है, सब ईस्ट की तरफ भागो। बस ये कहना था कि उधर के 300 लोग जो इस गली में थे वो सब अपना घर छोड़ के उनके साथ ज्वाइन करके फिर भागना शुरू करते हैं, और वो मेन स्ट्रीट में उनको ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं बाकी लोग जो भाग रहे होते हैं। फिर जेम्स थर्बर कहते हैं कि हर इलाके में डिफरेंट जो थी फोर्सेस होती हैं, जैसे कि फायरमैन होते हैं, या पुलिस कहीं खड़ी थी, कोई फ़ौज खड़ी थी, कोई कुछ थे, सब अपने यूनिफॉर्म में थे। तो मज़े की बात उनको ये लगी कि सब लोग जो है ऐड हो गए, अब बचाने के लिए बजाय लोगों को वो भी इस भगदड़ में शामिल हो गए, और काफ़ी कलरफुल सा लुक इस तरह से आने लगा कि सब अपने यूनिफॉर्म में थे, यानी सब बराबर हो गए। जो जितना ज़हीन, जितना प्रोफेशनल था, जितना अक्लमंद था, सब लोग आम लोगों के साथ मिलके भाग रहा था ईस्ट की तरफ, और उनको कोई इस चीज़ का ध्यान नहीं था कि क्या वाकई में ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है कि नहीं। फिर हुआ ये कि 2 घंटे के अंदर अंदर ये सब जो भगदड़ थी ख़त्म हो गई, और वो ख़त्म करने वाले मिलिट्री के लोग थे, वो अपनी एक लॉरी में बैठ के आए, उन्होंने जो है मेगाफोन से अनाउंस किया कि डैम जो है वो नहीं टूटा है। पहले वो ये ऐसा लगा सबको सुन के कि उन्होंने ये कह रहे हैं कि डैम तो अब टूटा है, और इसके बाद तो फिर एकदम और खौफ पैदा हुआ, और वो जो मुसीबत उनके सर पे टूटी थी उसके ऊपर स्टैंप लग गया कि अब तो वाकई में डैम टूट गया। लेकिन ज़ाहिर बात है फिर मिलिट्री मैन ने और क्लियर किया होगा, अनाउंस कर रहे थे, जब लोगों को ये समझ में आया कि डैम नहीं टूटा है तो वो वहीं पे रुके और ख़ामोशी से अपने घरों की तरफ चल पड़े। तो जैसे ये अफवाह स्टार्ट हुई थी वैसे ही 2 घंटे में के बाद ये ख़त्म हो गई और लोग अपने अपने घरों को चले गए। तो फिर जेम्स थर्बर फिर फर्दर ऐड करते हैं कि उस वक्त जो है अगर कोई एयरप्लेन यानी कि जहाज़ से ऊपर से गुज़र रहा होता तो वो ये सारे मंज़र को देखकर हैरान और परेशान रह जाता, ऐसे ही जैसे कि लोग मैरी सेलेस्ट एक शिप थी जो यूरोप और इटली के दरमियान सफ़र कर रही थी और पाई गई बिल्कुल खाली, क्रू मेंबर वहाँ पे कोई भी नहीं था उस शिप के ऊपर, बल्कि उसकी इंजन भी ऑन थे, उसकी सेल भी बिल्कुल ठीक थी और उसमें कोई 6 महीने का राशन पानी सब कुछ मौजूद था। तो वो शिप को क्यों छोड़ा, कैसे छोड़ा, इसकी कोई वजह नहीं समझ आई आज तक। तो ये एक फिनोमेना था, यानी कि मिस्ट्री थी जो सॉल्व नहीं हो सकी। वो कैफियत उस वक्त कोई भी जो गुज़र रहा हो ऊपर से और देखे तो उसको भी यही समझ में आएगा कि आखिर इन लोगों की वजह क्या है भागने की, ये लोग पागलों की तरह क्यों भाग रहे हैं। ये एक एजिटेशन, एक ये जो स्ट्रगल लोगों में नज़र आ रही है। स्टैम्पीड का भी वर्ड इसमें यूज़ किया जेम्स थर्बर ने कि ये भगदड़ जो मच रही है, अब लोग एक दूसरे को कुचलते हुए गुजर रहे हैं, ये सब कुछ क्या है। इसकी रीज़न उनको फिर भी समझ में नहीं आई होगी। ऐसे ही जैसे कि मैरी सिलिस्ट का जो वाक़या था बिल्कुल समझ से बाहर था कि उसमें उसकी बहुत सारी स्टोरीज़ बनी है इस शिप के ऊपर और कोई भी लॉजिकल नहीं है। तो इस तरह की कैफियत लोगों को समझ में आ रही होगी कि ये आखिर ये माजरा क्या है, कि ये लोग क्यों भाग रहे हैं। कोई वजह होती है हर चीज़ की, तो वो वजह नज़र नहीं आ रही थी, क्योंकि ज़ाहिर बात है डैम तो टूटा ही नहीं था। तो जेम्स हर्बर का ये कहना है कि ये 2 घंटे में ही सब कुछ हुआ था। ये जो तबाही थी, लोगों का भागना था, ये सिर्फ 2 घंटे के अंदर एक मुख्तसर वक्त में हुआ, लेकिन काफ़ी तबाहकुन था। और 2 घंटे के बाद जब पता चला कि नहीं है तो सब लोग घर चले गए वापस। फिर वो जेम्स हर्बर ने इसमें एडिशनल बताया हुआ है कि कुछ 8 मील भागे, कुछ 12 मील भागे और कुछ 4 मील भागे और कुछ दरख्तों पे चढ़ गए। तो ये सब कुछ उस दिन हुआ और कुछ मज़ाहिया अंदाज में बताने से जो है वो हमें ये इंटरेस्टिंग लगा पढ़ने में कि दैट दिस इज़ हाउ द थिंग्स could have happened or on that particular day. But on ground reality, it was horrible. It was the horrible situation which was present on that particular day in Ohio City in Columbus. Thank you. This is for today. We will continue in the next class.